You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this, well, not really the next episode. Let's just call it an update of what's coming up on the podcast. As we mentioned in the last show, August has been super busy for us. We've had family in one form or another visiting for most of the month. The latest visitor is Tracy's twin brother from Arkansas. Besides it being the Labor Day holiday weekend, it was their birthday on Friday. So with him here, it was kind of neat for them to be together to celebrate. Anyway, that's all just a bit of an explanation as to why, with other stuff going on in August, we decided not to stress ourselves out with the podcast and just release new shows more like every other week. And so it's been nice to have something of a summer break and do some other stuff and, of course, spend time with family. Anyway, with her brother here, I decided discretion was the better part of valor, and I wouldn't try to have Tracy sit down for us to do a new episode this weekend. But instead, I thought I would just record a short, whatever this is, and just let you guys know what's upcoming on the podcast. And you know, it's kind of crazy that since we've started in on 1864, we feel like we've kind of rounded the final corner with the podcast, and after all these years are kind of headed down the final stretch of the show as far as the war itself is concerned. I mean, of course, it'll take us a while to cover what all happened in 1864 and into the first part of 1865, and then we have Reconstruction. But it's kind of nice that really for the first time, we feel like we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And we've given some serious thought, about what we'd like to do as far as starting a new podcast once this one is wrapped up. But as for the immediate future and what's going to be coming up here on the Civil War podcast timeline, we have some really fantastic topics that we're looking forward to sinking our teeth into. First, coming up next, will be the Red River Campaign, which will take us down to Louisiana. The Red River Campaign took place March to May 1864 and was the final large-scale Army-Navy operation of the war. And the campaign is rather fascinating, first of all, for the reasons behind it. There was a diplomatic factor, since the Lincoln administration wished to establish a federal presence in Texas in order to counter French imperial ambitions in Mexico. Militarily, it was thought a thrust up the Red River would not only give the Union command of that part of Louisiana, but also provide a gateway into Texas. Then there were, let's call them economic reasons, but in reality, perhaps it'd be more accurate just to call it greed, behind the move up the Red River, since there were some powerful interests in the North who were anxious to get their hands on the cotton in the region and earn a tidy profit from it. So all of that meant for the Federals, the Red River Campaign started out with a mix of different and not necessarily complementary motives and goals. And things pretty much went downhill from there for them, as we'll see. We've said before on the podcast that we don't think there was a turning point during the war, but instead we believe there were a few events that can be considered turning points. And at the beginning of March 1864, one of those events happened when Ulysses S. Grant was elevated to General-in-Chief of all the armies of the United States with the rank of Lieutenant General, the first American officer to hold that rank since George Washington. Now, unlike the dull as dishwater Henry Halleck, Grant would not make General-in-Chief a desk job. Grant's headquarters would not only be in the field, but strategically, he would seek to coordinate the activities of the various Union armies to strike simultaneously on multiple fronts in the spring of 1864, aiming to exert overwhelming pressure on the Confederates to push the rebels to the breaking point. As the campaigning season of 1864 opened, Grant himself would be in the field in the Eastern Theater with George Meade and the Army of the Potomac because Ulysses S. Grant was determined to defeat Robert E. Lee directly. And this aggressive strategy on Grant's part would lead, starting in the first week of May, to the Battle of the Wilderness and the 1864 Overland Campaign, which, as we'll see, became a legendary duel between the two premier field commanders of the Civil War, in Grant and Lee.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
So with the Red River Campaign out in Louisiana and with Grant versus Lee in Virginia, those are two of the three next major story arcs on the horizon. And for the third, we'll go down to Georgia, where in the spring of 1864, William Tecumseh Sherman, who had his eyes set on taking Atlanta, he kicked off one of the most dramatic and decisive campaigns of the war. Sherman faced first Joe Johnston and then John Bell Hood. And as we'll see, the struggles for Atlanta in 1864 would end up being profoundly consequential, both militarily and politically, as the fall of the city in September provided a significant boost to Abraham Lincoln's chances for re-election. Sherman's capture of Atlanta would make possible his famous, or infamous, March to the Sea in November-December 1864, and John B. Hood's failure in Georgia would spur him to abandon the state and head out on his doomed strike up into Tennessee, where he met with disaster in front of Nashville that December. So hopefully you can tell we have some monumental story arcs coming up as we make our way through 1864. And hopefully I've managed to stimulate your interest in what's coming up. Now, in between major story arcs, we'll also be covering other stories and stuff. There's Fort Pillow, there's CSS Alabama versus USS Kearsarge, Jubal Early giving Washington, D.C. a scare, the goings-on in the Shenandoah Valley, and, of course, the presidential election in the North in the fall of 1864. So, 1864 has already provided us with some noteworthy topics, and I just wanted to take a few minutes today to let you guys know that the balance of the penultimate year of the war is only going to add more exciting and remarkable stories that we're really looking forward to sharing with all of you. Yeah, and with that, I think I've covered everything I wanted to with this quick update. So I'll just sign off by saying thanks for being on this journey with us through the Civil War and then through Reconstruction. I know I'm also speaking for Tracy when I say we appreciate all of you and look forward to continuing this journey together to its end. So, thanks everyone, and until next time, take care.